Hello, and welcome to the Research Library video tutorials. This series, titled General Help, was developed to explain program operations common throughout the application. Part 1 of General Help will briefly examine the operational structure of the Research Library and conclude with an introduction to web buttons. The main form contains operations that can be accessed from anywhere in the application. For example, this form contains the main Bible search engine and the Bible book lookup table. It also includes Bible navigation buttons. The red buttons are for the book, the black are for the chapter, and the blue are for the verse. The main form contains the Viewer Selector button, and it continually displays the current or active verse to which most operations are linked. The first 8 of the 12 main tabs are linked to the active verse. The Primary Version or PV tab accesses the currently selected primary Bible version, in this case the KJV or King James Version. Change versions by right-clicking on the tab and selecting from the lookup table. 8 interior tabs can be reordered and hidden. The PV tab also provides access to other books that have been added to the search engine, including the Apocrypha and a few works by early church authors. The Note tab is used to create and store personal research, sermons, articles, and general notes. The Footnote tab is used to create and store footnotes extracted from library publications. The Reference tab is similar to the Footnote tab, but is typically used to store larger blocks of text, such as unedited footnotes or posts from internet forums and blogs. References and footnotes, unlike notes, must be linked to library publications, such as books, articles, and internet forum and blog URLs. The concordance consists of user-defined key words linked to Bible verses and passages. The Strong's tab contains the Strong's Concordance of numbered Hebrew and Greek lexicons and definitions with interlinear referencing. The Scofield tab contains notes from the 1917 Scofield Reference Bible. The Alternate Version, or AV tab, displays a parallel translation to the primary version. The alternate version is also available to the main and concordance search engines. The other main tabs operate independently, that is, they are not tied to the active verse. The Septuagint tab accesses the Greek Old Testament, the 1851 Brenton translation, in side-by-side English and Greek. The Library tab opens a searchable list of all publications stored in the database. Publications can be locally stored books and articles or website URLs. The Library tab also provides access to the Church History form. The Publications tab is a menu that contains separate tabs for the publication, author, and publisher setup forms used to add new library entries. The Setup tab contains a series of tabbed operations for personalizing the application. Each operational form contains a separate help file accessed by clicking a local help button. Help buttons are identified by yellow question marks. Most controls will display brief operational help when the cursor is hovered over them. This is called a control tip. For example, when the cursor is hovered over the search button at the top right of the main form, a small pop-up appears near the button with the operational tip. The Help menu button, which opens a list of all available help files, is located in the lower left corner of the main form. It is identified by a yellow question mark underscored in dark blue and is accessible at all times. Double-click a help file name to access that help file. The operations of a form are carried out by controls. The following are the types of controls commonly in use on forms. Buttons are programmed to execute operations by simply clicking on them. Text boxes are used to add, edit, or display data presented as a single unit, such as a Bible verse or a footnote. Selection boxes display a list of data from which an item can be selected. Some lists are modifiable, such as those found in search boxes. Labels identify the category of data found in forms, and more specifically in text and selection boxes. Raised labels, as opposed to sunken or flat labels, operate in a manner similar to buttons. Clicking them will execute assigned operations such as column sorting. Pop-ups are defined as text and selection boxes that pop up over controls and forms to further identify a control or operation, or to serve as a context-sensitive menu. For example, the control tip is a pop-up that briefly explains the operation of the control over which the cursor is hovered. The filter menu, accessed by right-clicking on many of the data fields, such as the author names in the Publications Lookup table, is another type of pop-up. Checkboxes are sometimes used in tandem with buttons to route an operation down one of two paths. For example, to create a report with or without line numbers. A special class of buttons, called web buttons, can be customized by the user. More than 80 can be programmed to open Bible-oriented websites to the active verse. 16 web buttons are located on the main form, which means they can be accessed from anywhere in the application. This one was programmed to open the Study Bible website to correspond to the active verse. And this one opens Bible Gateway to a long list of Bible versions for the active verse. Many commentaries are also available on the Internet for context-sensitive access. This web button was programmed to open a Study Light commentary by Adam Clark to the active chapter. The bottom 8 buttons on the main form, as well as the 10 on the PV tab, have been programmed to access web-based commentaries. A web button can also be programmed to open either a website or a locally stored publication, depending on the availability of Internet access. The button path, found under the Setup tab, determines the order of access. If the Internet is offline, or the button path is set to File, the local book will be opened. For the next example, the Internet has been disconnected and the button path set to the default of Web. The Adam Clark button was also programmed to open a locally stored series of his commentaries. This volume contains Romans to Revelation, but since there is no table of contents, the button was set up to open to Romans. However, the book can be virtually split so that individual Bible books can be accessed. In Button Setup, a new entry will be programmed for separate access to Book 66, the Revelation. First, filter to isolate the Adam Clark entries. Next, copy-paste the last book entry to duplicate it. Book entries are identified by a -1 in the BK column. The button now opens to page 972 when the active book is the Revelation. A book may be split an unlimited number of ways to accommodate current research requirements. Seven web buttons under the Septuagint tab are linked to the selected Greek Old Testament verse rather than the active verse. Another 10, located under the Strong's tab, can open Bible lexicon websites to a particular Hebrew or Greek Strong's number. This button was programmed to open the Bible Hub website to the selected Strong's number. As demonstrated, web buttons significantly enhance the power and flexibility of the research library, yet they are surprisingly easy to program. This concludes the General Help Tutorial Part 1. In this part, we examined the operational structure of the research library and concluded with an introduction to web buttons. In Part 2, we will look at common button operations and conclude with record set navigation and simple searches. Thank you for watching.